When it comes to releasing it, then is it easier or harder? Because on the one hand, you've had total control, but then also if people don't like it, that's on
Yeah,
you.
yeah. It's pretty scary. You know, if you hear anything negative, or if, luckily I haven't had a lot of negativity. Although now, having a second record follow up to such a massive success in the first one, I've experienced more scrutiny than ever before, and magnifying glass on my life, you know, where that never happened before now. So I've had to find a way to not take everything very seriously, you know, because I, of course, you know, want every single review to be an A plus, 5 out of 5 stars,
Right.
you know, say this new record is a game changer and all the fantasies that a songwriter like myself would want, you know, for a review. And I have had those kinds of reviews, but just a couple bad ones that I've had broke my heart a little bit, you know, because I'd never experienced anything like that. No one has ever cared to review anything I've done. So I've had to remind myself that it still is just music that I'm playing, right? And that I'm so lucky to have this opportunity. And but if it was a band, it would probably be a little easier to stomach some of the blows, you know, because you could look at your mate next to you and go, well, that's your fault, dude, you know, or place the blame somewhere else. But in this case, it's sort of just me internalizing everything and just taking it on the head, which is what I was built for. So here we are.
Does it in turn then result again in more material?
Yeah,
to
oh
write
yeah,
about?
yeah, of course. And then there's, you know, it was pretty easy. It was easy to feel like the underdog before because I was. Now that I've done so well, I've had to rediscover a new sort of, I don't want to say enemy, but a new anger or a new passion or a new fire, I guess, because I was sort of blown away by everything that had happened, that I was, you know, just very grateful, and I almost was kind of like, man, I don't even know if I could ever do better than that, so what's the point in trying? And I went through a couple ups and downs while making the record until I realized that I didn't necessarily have the record yet. Then I got mad, you know, and then it was time to...
So that was the fire.
Yeah, then it was time to really step it up, and that's exactly what I did, and I think I made a great record.
But because, as you say, the previous record, I believe, even to you, surprisingly did really well, and then Sail kind of exploded.
Yeah.
So, and then there's, am I correct in saying that this is the first time, you know, even with the previous bands, that you made a follow-up album? The second
Correct.
album?
The last band was called Under the Influence of Giants, and we made one record that didn't come out at all. No one heard. It was called Bitch City, which I think people can find online. It's an interesting record. I would say that, you know, I'm not necessarily extremely proud of what I contributed to the record, but Drew Stewart, my guitar player now, and Jamin Wilcox, the drummer back then, what they did was really great. I'm a big fan of their work on that record. For me, it's a little bit juvenile and hard to listen to. Just like with anyone's work, when you look back 10 years behind, it's sort of hard to see. You know, it's like looking at a high school photo of yourself or something, or prom photos, you know? But anyway, so I put that record did not come out. Then we wrote another record that did come out. So I guess that was the first time I'd made 2 albums under the same band name or lineup. But it was never necessarily a sophomore follow-up because the first one didn't come out at all. So, but I've made so many different records that I'm very comfortable doing it, and the only pressure I feel is on myself to just do great and try to make music that affects people's lives. Because, you know, it's one thing to have a hit song, you know, that does well and people have a good time and party to it or whatever, and there's plenty of music like that. But it's another thing to have a hit song that actually helps people's lives. And I've found that through our travels and my experience that the songs that we had that were commercially successful and the record as a whole affected people's lives in a positive manner. And that's a different kind of pressure also. So I was very aware of that going into this new record. so I just kind of spoke from the heart of, where I was coming from, and so far people are grateful.
Well, what is one of the things that stuck with you that someone said to you about your previous music?
It's hard for me to say, because then it would just seem,
Fair enough.
I'll say that generally the best thing I ever hear is that my record helped people get through a real tough time. Mm-hmm. And you name it, I've heard it, from death to fighting cancer to normal kind of heartbreak stuff as well. And all of the above, people have, Megalithic Symphony was a soundtrack to a lot of people's lives. And so now we're on Run, and it's hopefully going to become that as well.
And then you mentioned not wanting to listen to the album or your own contribution to that album you made 10 years ago. What do you hear when you listen to Megalithic Symphony?
I don't have the opportunity to listen to it that often, so I don't usually listen to it. But right now, most of the time, I'm pretty into it still. When I hear the songs, obviously Sail was the biggest song, and a strange phenomenon. So I still hear that on the radio all the time. Mm-hmm. And I got to say, every time I hear it, I feel very proud of it, and it sounds great to me. I'm proud of the recording. It's dirty and raw, and has a lo-fi quality to it as well. And I think it stands the test of time still, and will hopefully forever.
And obviously the success kind of brought you across the world for 2 years.
Yeah.
When it came time to start working on Run, did you kind of pick a time and say, okay, now I'm going to write for this record, and now I'm going to...
I never stop writing. I'm always thinking of the next song I could better myself, creating at all times. So there was never one moment necessarily that I decided to stop everything else, because we continued to play shows here and there to stay relevant, and people still wanted us to play shows, so we did so. But we cut off touring at a certain point. We did a couple weekend trips here and there, but I don't know. I would say like the last 6 to 8 months leading up to the release, that was when it was time to really focus. But I was in a good flow at that time, so I'd still be writing the record right now if there wasn't, some sort of a deadline. I mean, I enjoyed that process very much.
What was did you have a kind of an idea or a concept in mind for what the record would be?
No, I knew it'd be heavier and a little darker.
Why?
Because that's just where my head was at, and I saw it's all pretty instinctual, but I naturally could see that everybody in alternative was moving in a poppier direction. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of major labels were sort of chasing that big crossover alternative hit song that I had in Sail.
Right.
And it being one of the first of its kind, of this era, I didn't necessarily, I didn't want to, that song wasn't a poppy song anyways to begin with. I'm still shocked that it did so well, Mm-hmm. So the last thing I was going to do is try to write something more poppy than that. And instead, I went in an even darker, more twisted direction. Having said that, I do think there are moments that are just as catchy, if not catchier, than any song on the first record.
When I listened to it, I noticed some kind of duality between the dark, but then also some sounds that were quite uplifting, or lyrics that could be uplifting. Is this a duality that you like to keep in your music?
I do. That's just life. I mean, it seems like anytime stuff's going really good for me, just right around the corner is going to be something terrible, Mm-hmm. And, Isaac Carpenter, our drummer, who's one of my best friends in the world, there's been a couple up and down moments, of course, and there always is when you're releasing a record. It's like giving birth. It's painful, And not that I would know, but although, yeah. So, every time it's going too good, you got to be ready for something weird to happen, and that could be anything. So that's kind of life, So I suppose the record has those sort of moments.
And if you take a song like Run, there's that line in it, I'm a human being capable of doing terrible things. Where did the line come from?
I don't remember when I thought of it, but I thought of it somewhere along the first record cycle of Megalithic Symphony, and sometimes I would sing it sort of as a nursery rhyme over extended jams that we had live. And then when I wrote the opening synth line to the song, I loved the music so much and the beat. Actually, I didn't add the beat yet, but I just loved this riff so much that, like, okay, where am I going to go here? And then I remembered that I had that line, so I just instantly sang it once. It was done. And I also knew it was going to start the record in a shocking way. And I think if you show people, you know, a real human, vulnerable side, they can get on board and relate to you, you know. If I was sitting here talking about how everything I touch turns to gold or something ridiculous like that, I don't know if anyone could relate to that, you know. Because A, I don't feel that way, and B, I just find it to be unattractive lyrically to brag or talk about how great things are, I guess, you know. I always found peace and sort of an escape in music by relating to other people's struggles. And it's okay to allow a little bit of victory to be shined on through the struggle, but I think a victory without some sort of mountain to climb up is an empty victory.
I was going to ask, because what popped in my mind was, maybe it's a weird question, but do you enjoy the struggle in that sense?
I do. It's weird. I feel more comfortable as the underdog. I feel more comfortable with all these odds against me. It's when everything's going great that it's a little uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, what's going on here? You know, when we played some of these bigger pop radio festivals and we played and then Miley Cyrus played, that was weird for me. You know, it didn't feel right. I was grateful to play for new ears, you know, but it just didn't seem right, you know. I still came from the punk rock and the hardcore scene where, you know, we were just grateful to play in front of a couple people.
This is another difficult question to answer then, but what would constitute success to you?
I've had it, you know.
Okay.
I've definitely had that. And, you know, if you would ask me before the first record, I would have said, man, it would be cool to sell 100,000 records. That would be nuts to me. You know, we surpassed that, obviously, but... or just to be able to sell, my goal was to be able to sell out smaller venues, you know, anywhere from 100 to maybe 500 at most, and have everybody singing along. That was my dream, you know.
And finally then, we talked about the phrase and run. Where did the title come from? What made you decide to pick the song title as the album title? Or was it the other way around?
Well, you know, the record opens up with sort of a call to arms of us all to kind of admit that we're all capable of you know, regrettable moments. And only then can you sort of move on to figure out, you know, how to navigate through this thing of life. So it's hard for me to say the word title, because I speak it the same way I said it on the record. So it's funny to me to say, but I feel like we are truly running towards something or from something, either way. And so it's sort of, here's the problem, now what's the solution going to be?
And then for you, what are you running towards now?
Well, that changes on a day-to-day basis, you know. Right now, I'm running from the wind outside. And, but, you know, that's for everybody else to decide how they feel.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.